This Reddit user says, how do you handle a high performer who refuses to document anything? I have a senior team member who is genuinely exceptional at their job. They consistently deliver, clients trust them, and they're often the person everyone turns to when something complicated needs to be solved. The problem is that almost none of what they do is documented. No SOPs, no process documentation, no handoff notes. Critical knowledge lives almost entirely in their head. I brought it up multiple times during one-on-ones. The response is usually some variation of I figure it out as I go, or it's hard to document because every situation is different. Part of me believes that's true. Another part of me suspects they know that being the only person who understands certain workflows gives them leverage and job security. The issue became impossible to ignore when they took a week off recently. Several things slipped through the cracks simply because nobody else knew they needed attention. I don't want to punish someone who's otherwise a great employee, but I also don't think it's acceptable for key business processes to depend entirely on one person being available. My question here, this is not done here, but the question popped up as I'm reading this. So will documentation solve the problem of this person being off? I mean, it says that nobody else knew they needed attention. How would documentation tell others that something needs attention? Unless there's something on the calendar, unless there are other team members involved. I'm not sure. He goes on to say, or she, for those who've dealt with this before, what actually worked? Did you make documentation part of performance expectations? Have someone shadow them, create incentives, or did you discover a different way to get knowledge out of their head without damaging the relationship? I'm especially interested in approaches that worked in practice, not just what should work in theory. So they're really good at their job. They're exceptional at their job, but they're not documenting. What other subreddit users said. Is your general documentation structure well established? If so, it should absolutely be a part of performance conversations. If not, it's hard to hold this person accountable to a general concept or idea. We'll need to establish the structure and then go from there. 100% agree. If you don't have that as part of the expectation, you can't hold anybody accountable to anything unless it's part of the thing. They know how to do it. You've given them sufficient training and support on it. So is it part of the expectation or not? What are they supposed to document exactly? Do they know how to document? There's a lot of different questions here. Here's another comment from another user. That's pretty common, especially with people who have been there for a long time. They don't even really have to think about the steps. True. The issue is creating documentation will interrupt their flow and slow them down and decrease productivity, and they will probably leave things out because they assume it's common knowledge, or put a bunch of exceptions in because one or two times something different had to be done. Creating good documentation is a skill, and people might be good at the work but not know how to create documentation. Yep. You may need to teach them how to create documentation as well as have a uniform template process for the entire team. Yep, and yep. And this last one, just out of curiosity, does this report feel protected and valued in the organization? Or is this a sort of dead man switch where they may be withholding the information for their own preservation? Okay, this is a great point here. A lot of people do this because they feel at one point they'll be, gotten rid of and they may withhold this information. So do they actually feel safe enough to create the documentations? What are the documentations for? I mean, the way you mentioned it is that someone's documentation brings attention. Documentation itself does not bring attention to something that needs to be done in the moment. Documentation is SOPs and it's used for reference, right? So what are you using documentation for is the question number one. Number two, do you have a process for it? What is your process? Where does the documentation go? Where does it live? How is it used? Number three, is there a structure for the documentation? What is expected to be documented? And number four, did you utter those expectations to your team members? Do they know that they're expected? Is it part of your performance evaluation? So there's a lot of questions to be answered before you actually ask that question. So as the manager, you're supposed to actually model all of these before you hand it down to your direct reports. The one thing I want to address is one of the comments here said that Some people are just not good at documentation. I 100% agree. They're really good at their job. They do it so well. They know it so well. I do agree that there needs to be an SOP for, some life happens and you leave your job and we need to get somebody else to do it. They don't know how. So this is where documentation is great. Some of us are really good at creativity. We're just really creative when it comes to the job. We're innovative. We could do things on the spot. We're problem solvers. Others are really good at documenting, and we're very good at knowing exactly how to document something step by step, or how to eloquently explain something in a document so that it's not a 100-page manual that just sits on the shelf collecting dust. And so this is, I think, where a DISC plays out. What is your DISC personality, or the C? If this person is C personality, they're really great at documentation. Others who are not C's, maybe the I's, who are really good at the warm, friendly conversation, and they're really good at the job, but they just don't know how to document and what to document. So this is where you need to know your people, and you need to set the expectations first, and you need to actually train them on how to do it. And again, let's just go back all the way to point zero. Do you really need the documentation? What do you need it for? If it's just something that you must have because you've had it before, if the job is getting done, get it done. Okay. But if it is something that you actually need to teach people from, or to, let's say it's something that you need for reference, then yes, but have a process for it. Don't just expect it without actually training your people on how to do it.